ما شفنا شيء.
You're watching the 420 newscast in English. I'm Linda Tamima, and these are today's top stories. Speaking in Paris, Mayor Patriarch Shad Adahi expresses his dismay at Lebanese political parties for their obstruction of the presidential elections as the vacuum officially enters its 11th month. Lebanon's foreign ministry says all Lebanese nationals in Nepal are safe as rescuers are searching for survivors of a magnitude 7.8 quake which claimed some 2,000 lives. And a new UN envoy is looking to kickstart peace talks in Yemen as battles rage on the ground between Houthi rebels and pro-government forces. Mayor Patriarch Shad Adahi has expressed his dismay at Lebanese political parties for their obstruction of the presidential elections as the vacuum officially enters its 11th month. During a ceremony honoring former Lebanese Deputy Premier Issam Faris at his Paris residence, Adahi said the void in the presidential post has led the country down a path of corruption, paralysis and chaos. The patriarch said it was very shameful that Lebanese political parties did not launch any responsible initiative that would ease Lebanon out of the presidential stalemate, which he described as fatal to the government, constitution, national pact and national dignity. The patriarch once again called on Lebanese politicians to facilitate the election of a new president, saying efforts should focus on supreme national interests. He is expected to hold talks with President François Hollande on Monday in a bid to find a solution to end the presidential vacuum. Rescuers in Nepal are searching for survivors of a magnitude 7.8 quake that killed nearly 2,000 people, including 17 on Everest, digging through rubble in the devastated capital, Kathmandu. Residents of Kathmandu were jolted by a fresh magnitude 6.7 aftershocks that compounded the worst disaster to hit the impoverished Himalayan nation in more than 80 years. Aftershocks were also reported in New Delhi, the capital of neighboring India, where the earthquake killed at least 50 people in the states of Bihar, Uttar Pradesh and West Bengal. The UN says hospitals in the Kathmandu Valley, the quake-affected region with 2.5 million people, were overcrowded, running out of emergency supplies and space to store the corpses. Several countries, including Japan, the United States, India and Germany, will send disaster response and rescue teams to Nepal. The US has also authorized an initial $1 million in aid. Lebanon's foreign ministry says all Lebanese nationals in Nepal are safe and no casualties have been reported. The ministry says it is in contact with the Lebanese embassy in India in an effort to relocate nationals who were trapped because of the powerful earthquake. It added that the international airport in Nepal's capital is still operating and 3 Lebanese nationals who have been stuck in the airport because of a delay in flights are set to leave in a matter of hours. Syrian television says Islamist insurgents who seized a key northwestern town had since slaughtered civilians, but monitors of the war said only government supporters had been detained and no one was killed. Rebels, including Al-Qaeda's Syria wing, captured Jisr al-Suhud for the first time in the 4-year conflict, edging closer to Latakia, the coastal province of vital importance to President Bashar al-Assad. At least 30 civilians were reported killed in the town close to the Turkish border. But the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says combatants had detained government backers and there was no confirmation so far that they had killed anyone. But the source said at least 27 people, mainly insurgents, were killed after Syrian jet bombed Jisr al-Shuhud as heavy fighting continued south of the town. The capture of the town of 50,000 people in Idlib province was the latest in a series of setbacks for government forces in the south and north of Syria. And coming up next, Ukrainians mark 29 years since the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. That and more after the break. Welcome back. Saudi-led warplanes have hit the rebel-held presidential palace in Yemen's capital, Sana'a, as fighting raged between anti-government and loyalist forces. 4 air raids struck the Sana'a presidential complex and a nearby hill where the military said rebel reinforcements were preparing to be sent eastward to the oil-rich Marib province. Marib has been the scene of days of deadly clashes between Shiite Houthi rebels and fighters loyal to exiled President Abdrabbu Mansour Hadi. Tribal sources said 90 rebels and 8 pro-Hadi fighters were killed in clashes and airstrikes in Marib. Among the targets were rebel positions in the main southern city of Aden, where military sources said overnight clashes left 7 people dead, including 4 rebels. In other fighting, local officials in Taiz, southwest of Sana'a, said intense clashes had left casualties, among them civilians. A new UN envoy was looking to kickstart peace talks in Yemen as battles are raging on the ground. The United Nations confirmed Mauritanian diplomat Ismail Ould Sheikh Ahmed as the new special envoy to Yemen, replacing Moroccan Jamal Ben Omar, who resigned last week following what diplomats described as sharp criticism of his performance by Gulf countries. A UN statement says Ould Sheikh Ahmed will work closely with the members of the United Nations Security Council, the Gulf Cooperation Council, governments in the region and other partners, as well as the UN country team for Yemen. At least 3 people were killed and another 13 wounded in Iraq when a car bomb exploded in the Amil neighborhood southwest of Baghdad. It was one of several car bombs that ripped through several commercial areas in and around the capital, killing at least 12 civilians in total. The deadliest attack took place in Khilani Square, a busy commercial area in central Baghdad, where a car bomb killed at least 5 people and wounded 15 near a Sunni mosque. Government forces are struggling to dislodge Islamic State militants from the western province of Anbar and much of northern Iraq. On Saturday, ISIS militants attacked a border crossing between Iraq and Jordan with 3 suicide car bombs, killing 4 Iraqi soldiers. The U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation is investigating a possible Islamic State-inspired terrorism plot in the United States. This is according to CNN, which quoted law enforcement officials who did not specify whether this was a new threat or was associated with the Islamic State. CNN said the investigation started after intercepted communication and other intelligence information that led officials to believe that a plot could be underway. The network quoted an official as saying the plot focused on parts of California and that officials there had stepped up security. The Transportation Security Administration had also alerted local law enforcement agencies responsible for security around airports in the state, although CNN said the possible threat was not necessarily related to aviation. Ukrainians have marked 29 years since the Chernobyl nuclear disaster, laying wreaths and candles near the plant, where work to lay a new seal over the reactor site has been delayed. The explosion of reactor number 4 on April 26th of 1986 spewed poisonous radiation over large parts of Europe, particularly Ukraine, Belarus and Russia. At 1:23 a.m., the exact time of the explosion, hundreds of people placed flowers and candles in the dark at the foot of a monument in Slavutich, a town 50 kilometers from the plant. Slavutich was built to rehouse Chernobyl workers who had lived near the plant and were forced to move further away after the disaster. At the site of the plant itself, around 100 kilometers from Kiev, Ukraine's President Poroshenko laid a wreath at a monument to the victims. UN experts officially recognized 31 deaths among plant workers and firefighters directly linked to the blast, but environmental group Greenpeace predicted there would be around 100,000 additional cancer deaths caused by the disaster. Russian hackers who penetrated sensitive parts of the White House computer system last year read President Barack Obama's unclassified emails. This is according to the New York Times, which quoted White House officials as saying there is no evidence that the president's email account itself was hacked. Still, the fact that some of Mr. Obama's communications were among those retrieved by hackers has been one of the most closely held findings of the inquiry. A White House spokeswoman declined to comment on the report, but the White House earlier this month confirmed the breach, saying it took place last year and it did not affect classified information. The New York Times said the breach had been far more intrusive and worrisome than has been publicly acknowledged. It said that although no classified networks had been compromised, officials conceded that the unclassified system still contained highly sensitive information, such as email exchanges with diplomats, exchanges about personnel moves and legislation, presidential schedules, and discussion about policy. Well, speaking of Obama, the U.S. president took light-hearted aim at a range of political friends and foes, including the people running to succeed him. At the gathering he jokingly called a night when Washington celebrates itself. Obama, now in office for 6 years, is a polished performer at the annual White House Correspondents' Dinner. that draws journalists, politicians, and celebrities to a cavernous ballroom in the Washington Hilton. Check it out.
Welcome to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, the night when Washington celebrates itself. Somebody's got to do it. After the midterm elections, my advisors asked me, Mr. President, do you have a bucket list? And I said, well, I have something that rhymes with bucket list. Take executive action on immigration? Bucket. New climate regulations? Bucket. It's the right thing to do. There's a shelf life to that thing. I look so old, John Boehner's already invited Netanyahu to speak at my funeral. Meanwhile, Michelle hasn't aged a day. I asked her what her secret is. She just says, fresh fruits and vegetables. It's aggravating. 6 years into my presidency, some people still say I'm arrogant and aloof, condescending. Some people are so dumb. No wonder I don't meet with them. And that's not all people say about me. A few weeks ago, Dick Cheney says he thinks I'm the worst president of his lifetime. Which is interesting because I think Dick Cheney is the worst president of my lifetime. For 9 months, Jason has been imprisoned in Tehran for nothing more than writing about the hopes and the fears of the Iranian people, carrying their stories to the readers of the Washington Post in an effort to bridge our common humanity. As was already mentioned, Jason's brother Ali is here tonight, and I have told him personally we will not rest until we bring him home to his family, safe and sound.
This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our headlines. Speaking in Paris, Maronite Patriarch Shadadahi expresses his dismay at Lebanese political parties for their obstruction of the presidential elections as the vacuum officially enters its 11th month. Lebanon's foreign ministry says all Lebanese nationals in Nepal are safe as rescuers are searching for survivors of a magnitude 7.8 quake, which claimed some 2,000 lives. And a new UN envoy is looking to kickstart peace talks in Yemen as battles rage on the ground between Houthi rebels and pro-government forces. Those were the stories trending on Future Television today. I'm Linda Tamim, and I'll see you again tomorrow for more. Take care.
ما شفنا شيء.